Welcome to the July update of the New Haven Willoughby line. I've been working on a few things new this month that I want to jump right into, so stick around. Pardon the mess. Everything is a complete disaster, but I think that's usually a good sign because that means I have been steadily working on different things down here. With summer vacation as a teacher, I've been trying to make the most of my time. First thing I want to show you is some Trackside stuff that I've been working on, just some junk and different pieces to kind of add the presence of humans. This is one little pile that I've been working on. Everything is pretty much glued down and fastened. I added this little thing actually right there, that little shrub, to hide a hole that was white because there's foam under there. So I did that today and it seems to have dried. I think I still need some weathering on this. Everything's kind of the same color, so I want to kind of add a little bit more rust in spots and dull things down and come up with some more variations of color. But that's one little area that I had worked on. I believe when I did the turf, which is another thing I wanted to show, this rail has been secured as well, and this section here of scrap rail. So the other project that I've been working on, or another project I should say, is getting the shingles on these two scratch-built structures. And I need to do some refining on the edges of these, but I used Bar Mills shaker-style shingles, and I absolutely love them. I think they look really good. They come actually in one strip, which is super easy to work with. And I mean, each layer is one strip, but it runs the whole length and you just trim it. And I think there's enough variation that they look pretty good. And you don't really need to worry about lining them or, making sure that things are lined up. The color on these are still terrible. They're too yellow. I need to go back over them with a different color and weathering. But these were Bar Mills as well, I think, but these were like a standard shingle, and lining them up and making sure that they're all kind of done correctly was a lot more difficult. So these were fantastic to work with. I think they look great, and I probably will work on the coloring of one or both of them as well. I did add some powders onto this one. But yeah, I'm super pleased with those. So that was one project. They were kind of expensive, but well worth it. You probably shop it around. I can't remember how much I paid and where I got them. They were from eBay somewhere. Maybe Black Forest Hobbies. I get a lot of stuff from Black Forest, just because they have a selection that I want. So yeah, they're just fantastic. So that was another kind of a major project, because now this section looks a lot better. So let me show you the next little bit that I've been working on, and we'll get into the major project I've been working on. So in addition to the Trackside things that I've been adding, I've also been working, I did a couple of nights in a row where I did one little section of turf, and I've just been using, I haven't done any static grass yet, but I've been using different coarse turf, the light green and green, I think medium green and light green. So I've been doing a combination of those, and then some of my super leaf, fall leaf, I guess they're just fall leaf color. they look like dead leaves, so I've been mixing those in a little as well for some extra color. So I did like this section one night, this section another night, this section and this section. Just quick little things before I go to bed at the end of the day. And this little section is starting to get layered up pretty nicely. I'm going to add some static grass in areas on top, and then I also, in sticking with the theme of turf, I started to take all the scraps that I had left of my original super trees and spray painted them, probably just a flat black, but did like a light coating so not everything's fully covered. So there's some variation in there, and then I'm gonna use more of my turf and super leaves for those. So I've been working on slowly building up the turf, and yeah, hopefully next update I will have some static grass in this area. I tend to, as you can see, I just leave stuff all around on the table. Like this is just, I mean, this is heavy alcohol that I actually used for this section here. But once you put the static grass down, if you put stuff on top of it, it kind of ruins it, which I've done all on this section. Well, up here at least probably, I tried to keep stuff off. But there's a lot of static grass that I probably destroyed. Just doesn't stay up if you put stuff on top of it. This section probably most definitely, this was all static grassed. It actually, I mean, it looks trampled, it looks dimensional enough, but it's not as nice as, you know, it was when it started. So keeping in mind that this table still has a lot of work to go, yeah, I'm kind of hesitant to do the static grass right away. I did do this section up here because this stuff is going to be in the back and not get touched. Oh, that's one other thing, is I got more gravel as well. So I started to layer up the gravel on the driveway for that structure, and then I put some actual gravel down for this little structure as well. It was just dirt and I didn't like it, so like actual dirt, but this is Woodland Scenics gravel. So I started to add some of that. You can see the tools are just laying around. So this has some more work to do, some more turf, shrubs, and whatnot. But it's a slow progress. I like it. It's fun doing the scenery. So a little bit here and there makes me feel good. So let me show you the big project I'm working on, and that'll probably wrap it up for this episode. So this section here, I finally got the, what is it called? It's on the floor there, George Roberts printing. I guess it's just the George Roberts printing ink structure by Walthers, and I've been slowly building it. I did the brickwork on most of it, except I of course forgot the inside, so that is still drying, and I need to do the mortar. But a couple of things to share. I know everybody's got kind of their own techniques. I know I've used YouTube for different techniques, but I just kind of wanted to share a few things that I've done and learned along on this project. One thing, it shows up okay on here. It actually looks like the brick is lighter than the mortar. I don't mind it overall, but it's just not showing up as well as it did when it was first accomplished. Maybe this section's a little bit better. It's kind of subtle, but you can see that the mortar is lighter than the brick in most parts. But what I did, because I've struggled with doing brick and mortar painting, and I haven't seen a whole lot on this, but I've used oil paints, actual artist paints. So I painted all the brick with two colors, and I can show you which ones I used. They're probably somewhere in this mess, because I've still got pieces here. Oh, nope, they're over here. No, actually, I lied. They're not. They're on my palette, still on the floor. This is a Winsor Newton, I think it's a raw sienna. Label's ripped off, I think it's raw sienna. I studied painting for 4 years, I should know my colors. And then this is a, I can't see a burnt sienna. So raw and burnt sienna. This is Grumbacher. This is more red than I'm used to as a burnt umber. I've used Winsor Newton, and I don't feel like it's as red. But those two colors worked extremely well for that brick color. And a couple of things with the oil paint. I did everything by hand, but with the oil paint. And the oil paint is thicker, so when you brush it, you can almost brush on top of the brick without hitting inside the mortar lines, whereas acrylic is going to go right into the mortar crevice. So the oil stays more on the top, so you can almost like dry brush it, but with the wet paint, if that makes sense, and you don't go into the cracks. Then what I did is I used paint thinner or mineral spirits and white mixed in and laid that in for the mortar, and that has great capillary action because it's thinner than water, so it goes right into all of the cracks much easier if you thin it down. So this is all artist oil paint, same stuff I use for my regular fine art paintings, stuff that you'd get at a paint store, art store. You can get oil paints at Michael's and craft stores too, but it's actual artist oil paints, not for models. And I found it worked awesome for this model, and it will probably be my go-to in the future if I do any more brick stuff. It just, again, you can do just the top layer of the brick, and it doesn't seep into the cracks like acrylic will. And when you thin it with paint thinner, it totally goes in and has that capillary action. It does take a while to dry. You can add things to speed up the drying time if you want. When I was in college, I think there was like Japan dryer, they called it. I just give it a couple of days and it dries. So I did the inside here, and now I have to go back and do the mortar. Sorry, I had to take a sip of my tea. I don't know if you can see it. Oops. But this is, I have not done anything with the mortar, so the mortar you can actually still see, but that's just the primer that's underneath, but it still shows up. And so you can kind of see just by this example here how when you brush just the straight oil paint on, it doesn't go into those cracks. And then if you wanted to, then you just thin it with mineral spirits and it has that capillary action, which is awesome. So found it totally worked much better than doing anything with acrylic or an airbrush. Again, I don't want to sound obnoxious. I have some vast painting experience with oil paint, so I'm very comfortable with it. So if you've never used it, you might want to practice. But I think just the way the paint works for brick, I think it's just amazing. So if you've done it, hopefully you can testify to that ease of use, and if you haven't, I suggest trying it. I'm trying to remember what else I've done. I've done different mortar. My other go-to is using, and this might have been on another update, but I just, for that building, it's just too big. I've used, what did I use? I used a putty. I used this stuff, plastic putty, and I just rubbed that into the brick, and that acts as an awesome mortar. And I know that's a technique I've seen on YouTube by other fellow hobbyists, and that I like as well. I think that gives you, in some ways, the best look. I think I did that for like here. It kind of really shows up and stands out. I probably did it for this structure as well. But that stuff's expensive, and with a kit this big, it was gonna take too much, and I felt it was getting too sloppy, so I tried something different. So yeah, that's the painting of it. I like the color of it. It's a little bit different than any other one. I guess it kind of matches this one here, this background kit, but it's got its own kind of color. And you know, all brick buildings, they're all brick colored, but they're not all the same. So so that's the painting of it. The other thing I've been working on is the windows. It looks terrible from the inside, but on the outside I've been trying to get that kind of you know, glass replaced look to it, that you'll see in different old factories. So I've been trying to come up with different variations. I think one of the things, like most things when you're doing effect kind of things, is to not use the same process for the entire thing, because then it becomes very predictable. So I used yellow colored film that I had. I also started to experiment with sanding the glass to give it a frosted look. So if I turn this around, you can see, you know, these up here are frosted. This has got the yellow film up here. These are still clear. I think this is yellow, got yellow film on this, so there's the variations there. And then I used paper on for some of the blocks, but you have to measure and cut them, which is kind of a pain. And then I've started to just paint a lot of them by hand, which I've done in the past. So you can see I've painted them, but you have to be kind of careful because the lines are very thin, or the frames are very thin for the windows, so you don't want to you know, come out into different sections. I start to add some shades on one side. I forget, maybe on some of the other windows on my workbench. So yeah, I start to do different things to kind of break up the monotony of the windows. This big section is actually facing away from the edge of the table, so you're not going to see that unless you know, look over. But I'm starting to kind of develop a not so consistent look there. So that's what I've been working on for the last 2 days. And then before dinner, this is still not dry, but it's dry enough to put the structure on there to show. I've had to raise up this level of table so that the rail, the track, will fit, you know, under the building. So this is designed so this will go pretty much like this. And then if you're familiar with this kit, there's this front section that comes out in the loading dock is actually on this side here. It's on the inside of the building. So yeah, so I'm super pleased with how this is coming out. Trying to do some variation. It is right on the front edge of the table, so I'm trying to add as much detail to it as possible. And then I'm trying to come up with some other plan for what's going to go on back here to hide more of this curved track. And I was thinking about possibly even getting rid of some of this hillside and even building up something here, so it's like a platform or like an elevation of other buildings. This part lifts out, so you can see the crack where this whole part lifts up. So I can't put anything over that crack, and I don't really, if I put a structure there, it's kind of weird. I don't want a structure to be cut in half. So I'm not exactly sure what's gonna happen behind this for now, but at least I'm thinking at least one more structure, tall structure. I actually earlier did, and I'm kind of rambling on with this update. I took this structure out and spun it around, if I can do this, and I almost really liked the way this fit in here. It kind of fits into that space naturally. You kind of have an alleyway here, and maybe some track on concrete, or on, you know, a street side straight track or something that goes in between the two structures. I'm not sure. It might not even be accessible. I haven't figured it out, but I kind of almost like the way the structure fits in there, or that kit. So I may scratch build something for that section. I'm not sure yet, but I almost like that. But then if I do that there, then I am really at a loss because it fits so nicely in that space. So I kind of don't want to move what I already had that worked. But I might do some kind of kit bashing or something to end up with some kind of angled structure like that. I had also thought about doing some kind of elevation over the track, so the tracks actually go under a platform, so a building would be, you know, up here kind of thing, and the track would go underneath it. That's a possibility as well. So some stuff to think about. I don't have to figure it all out in one day. Can't do that with one hand, so I'll leave that there for now. But yeah, so I've been working on the structure and doing the few little odds and ends, and that's gonna pretty much wrap it up for the July episode. August episode might be kind of hard to come by. I'm gonna try to get it out before the end of August, but I've got some family stuff going on this month and next month, so it might be kind of hard to get an August update. But hopefully the next time I come out with an update, there's some more progress on this section here. But I'm super psyched about this. Happy July. Sorry I kind of rambled for longer than I was anticipating, but there's a lot going on with this one little part of the layout. So happy July. Take care. Be well.